Slicers? This is George at Hypno Comics here in Ventura, and I'm here with Bob Layton, who made the trek from West Hollywood.
It's a bit more of a drive than I thought it'd be, George, you know?
So he's joining us today. We're going to be signing autographs. I mean, obviously, the definitive Iron Man artist here at Hypno Comics. And again, I really appreciate you coming up.
My pleasure, man.
And what we like to do is just kind of hang out, you know, talk a little bit about, especially when we get big hitting creators like this guy in our house. We want to talk about like your early days, man, at Marvel. Tell us how it was, your first project, who you shacked up with. Give us the yeah.
Yeah, because Lord knows I got into comics for the chicks. Well, you know, it was such a different time than now. I mean, there wasn't even an internet then.
Right.
You know, I mean, no, I started up at Marvel in 1976, which dates me considerably. Yeah, I think my first regular series there was The Champions.
Yeah.
And it was really, this funny story. It goes to show you that I'm not a genius, okay? Because I had done some team books over at DC, and then I went to Marvel, because that's where I actually wanted to be.
Right.
But I started with DC because I apprenticed with Wally Wood, and so that was kind of got my foot in the door there. But when I got to Marvel, all I got was team books. And finally, you know, I did Champions for a while, and then they offered me the X-Men. And I'm like, X-Men. So at the time, it was a bi-monthly comic. Dave Cockrum was doing it.
Yep.
He didn't like the inking on the book at all. And he and I are friends from the old fanzine days. So he says, Bob, yeah, come on board, do X-Men with me. So I did like one issue of it, and I'm like, I don't know these guys. You know, I mean, where's the Angel? Where's Cyclops? You know, where's, you know.
Oh, yeah, because it's a new X-Men.
Yeah, it was the new X-Men.
Right,
and at the time, they were, I mean, literally new.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, they all got weird costumes that are hard to do, and there's like 50 people, you know, on a page, and blah, 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 blah. And then DC offered me, you know, a contract. And at the time, because back then we were like old football players. We played with leather helmets and stuff. I mean, I think I got $40 a page complete back then.
Wow.
You know, and no rights, of course, or anything else.
Yeah.
So, or royalties or anything like that. So DC offered me a steady contract. So I took it. But that's where I went over, and that's how I met David Michelinie, and we paired up and worked on a few projects there. And from there, after DC looked like they were going to implode, we jumped ship and went back to Marvel as a team.
Yeah.
And that's how we got Iron Man, because they were, back then, when they only published like 15 titles or something, if you recall. I don't know how old you are.
I'm 47.
47. I don't know how old you are.
I'm 47.
But in those days, you kind of like, what they did was they took their A-listers off, because, you know, they had contracts with the distributors, because everything was newsstand back then.
Right.
And there were no comic shops at that point. So if the book was going to get canceled, and which was really odd, because back then the cancellation cutoff was 90,000 copies.
Oh,
which
my God.
by today is
a
large erection for any creator, right?
Yeah, exactly. 35,000 is a big hit.
Yeah, no, but back then it was like 90. So what they would do is they'd take their A-listers off the book when it got canceled, but they were still contracted to do like 6 issues or whatever. So that's how they tried out new talent on the books that were going to get canceled. And that's kind of how Dave and I wound up on it, because they had, like, I think Ghost Rider was one of them, and it was like Iron Man. I said, take Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll explain later. And Dave wasn't a Marvel guy. He was kind of a DC guy.
He did great work on Daredevil, though.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's part of it because he came in with a totally fresh approach to looking at all the Marvel characters, because he really wasn't much of a Marvel guy.
Got it.
And since we worked together as a co-plotting team, you know, in terms of creating the stories together, you know, I said, just take Iron Man, because I used to make my own little Iron Man comics and crap, you know. In fact, really, it was funny. The Camelot story was actually a story I came up with as a kid. I told Dave about it. He goes, that's great. Let's do it.
Really?
You know, yeah.
All right.
So that we wound up on the book, and we just pretty much said, can we do whatever we want? And they're like, oh, we don't care.
Cancel.
We're going to cancel it
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly, yeah.
So we like killed everybody on page 5, created a whole new supporting cast, Rhodey, Mrs. Arbogast, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Created the new armors, all that. The rest is history,
Stealth
as
armor,
they say.
space armor.
Yeah, the rest is history, as they say. But that was all because the book was going to get canceled, you know. But oddly enough, it went from selling like 90,000 to about 300,000 within the space of 6 issues.
You got to keep your jobs there.
Yeah, exactly. So we got to keep our jobs, our cushy, underpaid jobs. Yes.
So you did. I mean, obviously you're well known for Iron Man. So you really wanted the book, obviously. What is it that you loved about Iron Man in general? I mean, what drew you to that character?
I was always a fan of the Arthurian legends as a kid.
Okay.
You know, reading, books on King Arthur and all that stuff, and I loved knights.
Yeah.
That was always kind of a thing with me. Plus, I had that. I was also I was a car guy. I grew up in Indianapolis, so racing cars and car. So I used to draw cars all the time too and stuff like that. And it was kind of an amalgam of those two loves, But with him, it was kind of like I always thought it would be much cooler to be Tony Stark than to be Iron Man.
Yeah.
I mean, I joke with people that I created my own role model. It's like, so we set out to make Tony Stark the coolest guy in the world, and then I set out to try to emulate him as much as possible in my real life.
Yeah, that brings to mind one of your covers you did, the Mission in Monaco one, where he's up against the wall
James
like
Bond.
James Bond.
Yeah,
exactly. That's a great
my
cover.
My attitude about him was that he only should become Iron Man when he can't handle it as Tony Stark.
Right.
And the fact that he's always the smartest guy in the room. And he's the coolest guy in the room, and he's the guy with the most toys and blah, 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 blah.
Money.
So, it was always, to me, much cooler to be Tony Stark. And that's something, as you know, in the old days, Tony Stark was just a cipher, like Bruce Wayne and all the other ones that they just used him as a conduit to get him into the armor.
Into the suits, right.
Yeah, and so to me, it's kind of like I wanted to change that whole dynamic, and focus, because I think if you believe the guy, that when he puts on the armor, you still think of
the guy in the suit.
It's him in that suit. You still think of it as Tony.
Yeah.
Where I think before that they literally almost treated them like they were separate entities.
So you were with Marvel in the 70s. Was that when they were still doing the whole stamp on the back of the paycheck thing?
Yeah. That's why I'm not. That's why I didn't take my limousine here.
Well, I mean, you see people talk about that.
You want to explain that? Yeah. No. Basically, there was a rubber stamp on the back of our paychecks, and in language unbecoming to civilians, it basically stated that when we endorsed the check, we signed away all our rights to everything that we created there. So, and now that Iron Man is $1 billion franchise, I see none of that. So it's kind of like, it's bittersweet.
Yeah, I got you.
I mean, what really I think irritates me more. I mean, because in a million years, I never would have thought that it would wind up being a global phenomenon.
Right.
And boom.
Top shelf here at Hypno.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I never would have anticipated in a million years that it would have turned into what it is. I mean, hell, I was so happy just to be doing the book at the time. I mean,
Yeah.
It's like, to me, that was a fulfillment of a dream. I think what bothers me more is the merchandising aspect. Well, because if you notice, you go to cons, you'll see that most of the T-shirts that Marvel puts out it's stated it's the old school stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason why is they don't have to pay any creator royalties or anything to us. So that's why there must be literally 10,000 pieces of merchandise out there with my art on it.
Yeah.
That I get nothing, and that's. Because DC is much better about paying foreign reprint rights. That's one of the reasons why I quit Marvel, because they don't give us foreign reprint rights. They don't give us merchandising rights, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Any kind of royalties on any of that stuff.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah, and I just said, I mean, I'll be damned if I'm going to continue to aid in my own exploitation.
Sure. So let's talk about, you were a vital part of Valiant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am credited in Wikipedia as the co-creator of the Valiant universe.
Right.
Co-architect.
Co-architect.
Yeah.
Well, you guys had a tight universe when that company first launched, and I was a really tight continuity.
Yeah, well, you forget about the 2.5 years of it we floundered and wasted a ton of money doing really stupid shit.
Yeah.
It's like Nintendo and
right.
wrestling books.
Yeah.
It's like,
And then you guys picked up the Solar and the Magnus and
Yeah, and it's like
Turok. And
that was an exhausting time for me. Well, you know, I mean, Shooter had lured me over there with the promise of, you know, having a percentage of the company because he had always picked my brain because I was always a good idea man.
Yeah.
So when I was at Marvel, he was always picking my brain, you know, for ideas and concepts and things of that nature. So, you know, he basically, you know, convinced me to leave Marvel at the height of its at Iron Man's popularity to go over there and, you know, work in a startup thing. So it was exhausting. I mean, I was there 17 hours a day. And what you don't know is I was doing production too. I mean, I was back running the production department as well as inking all the books and you know, and editing stuff. I mean, it was grueling. I put myself in the hospital twice from exhaustion. You know.
Wow.
It's a startup company, you know.
Yeah.
You do whatever you can to keep it going.
Sure.
You know? You own a business, you know.
I am. Yes, I do work long days.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes I miss my corporate job, but not that much.
Yeah.
So any of the characters, what are some of the one-off books that you did with Marvel and DC? I mean, because, you know, obviously you're known for your Iron Man. Can I say the F word? I'm a fucking Secret Wars junkie. I am. In the 80s, I was their target audience, man.
Really?
They made that for toys. I didn't give a shit about the toys.
Well, yeah, I designed the toys.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, they were awesome.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
But the covers on that. I mean, Secret Wars, really, I had the little cloth wall scroll. I mean,
it was the first big event
Exactly.
comic, in comics history. You know, where basically it tied into the entire universe.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah?
You know?
Was it cool to be a part of that?
Well, yeah, I got drafted.
Yeah?
You know, I was in between projects, and when Zek got behind, I kind of just got drafted. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, you know, plus I've always been pretty fast. I mean, I'm a deadline conscious kind of guy. So, you know, and Zek was, because any kind of team book like that is just, it's a cluster.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in that book, yeah. And some of the covers that you did, like, I mean, the whole Cold in the Mountain, the composition on that's just great. I mean, you know,
that's considered one of the top 100 covers of all time.
It's an awesome cover, which I'm going to ask you to sign for me today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, they just did. I think Comic Book Resources did a poll of the top 100 covers of all time.
How many do you have on there?
5.
Good for you, dude. What were they?
I can't recall. A Demon in a Bottle, obviously.
Right, sure.
Oh, Thor. Thor. I don't know. It's the Thor where he's
Herc.
Yeah.
I had one copy, and some guy bought it to come sign it today.
The Secret Wars cover was on there, and it was a couple others. I can't remember what the other two were.
The Herc one's awesome, where he's just straight face palming Thor, and he's like, "Step aside, Thunder God."
Yes.
And he's got all the chicks.
We kind of broke the fourth wall on that. You know, it's like.
Yeah. Was it Assistant Editors Month or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Somebody was on vacation, I remember.
Yeah, Walt was on vacation.
Yeah,
it was a fill-in,
yeah.
you know. But it was just, I said, well, let's just do something incredibly goofy, you know.
That's a great cover, man.
Yeah, no, like I said, so
That's a
but
great cover.
well, see, there was a time where I was cover artist for Marvel, specifically. I mean, I did like 7 covers a month through like a 5 or 6 year period there.
Yeah.
Because I lived a block away from the offices, so I'd be sitting at home, you know, inking whatever book I was working on, and this envelope would come sliding under my door, and it was a cover with a post-it on it saying, "We need this by tomorrow." So
Block
it would
away.
either be a sketch from Dave Cockrum, who was the cover guy at the time, or
Yeah.
or whatever. But they would just they'd run a messenger up to my place and slide it under the door, and you know, I'd bang it out and drop it off in the office in the morning, and so. Yeah, so I've wound up doing just like 7, 8 covers a month up there for years.
Wow. Yeah.
Plus, I filled in for John Romita when he was on vacation. The 2 weeks he got off.
Yeah.
I was the art director up there every year for 2 years, which everybody loved, because John was like Scotty from Star Trek, right? John would always, like, someone would come in and, how long is it going to take to get the correction? And he would say, 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, he could do it in an hour,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, you know, it's like when he was gone, people would just bring piles of stuff all at once because they know I would bang it out really quick, you know?
The go-to guy, Bob Layton.
It was kind of funny.
What are some of your favorite covers that you've done, since you've done so many? I mean, that weren't Iron Man related. I mean, obviously Secret Wars was some of my favorite ones. The Galactus supervillain classic, the Galactus.
It was a Marvel Saga you're talking about. Yeah, you're talking about the one where he's straddling the
No, the
Or
real.
the big head one. There's two of them.
The big head one.
Yeah, well, there's two of them. The second one, there's one with Galactus, like just in space, and the ships are going by him and stuff. And I had a dream of that cover, and I got it in the middle of the night and drew it.
Right on.
It happens to me sometimes.
That's good.
Where I just get an image in my head while I'm sleeping. I work in my sleep. And I'd get up and, just draw it. But yeah, I remember the Galactus as well. I mean, there's been a variety of stuff. I mean, I don't fall in love with my own work very much.
No?
No, that's why I never keep the originals, or anything like that, because, it's just my ability to understand art exceeds my ability to draw it. Oh. And so Dickie, I used to talk to Dick Giordano. We used to talk about this over lunch all the time. Because I'd bitch about how things just never turn out the way you want it. And he goes, yeah, but nobody knows the picture in your head. Yeah. You see, everyone looks at the final product and they think it looks really cool. But see, I look at it and I realize I had the picture in my head, and I always lose something in translation.
Isn't there like one or two that stand out where you're just like, man, I just knocked this out of the park?
Nah, I'm just one of those guys who just doesn't fall in love with his own work. Well, I don't even draw anymore. Now I work as a writer primarily, so I kind of draw for fun. I go to cons. That's how I get do that kind of stuff. Every 3 or 4 days, I'll sit down at the drawing board and I'll either I'll take a commission from somebody, or I'll just do a drawing just to keep my skill set going.
Sure.
But I don't really, since I don't really work in comics anymore, it's kind of like one of those things. I'm so afraid I'm going to lose. Because people say, isn't it like riding a bike? And I said, no. It's the difference between riding a bike and training for the Tour de France. I spent 40 years developing, a set of skills that, you have to keep honed, or otherwise they just, they go live
Exercise.
with Jesus. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up. We've got people lining up for Bob. I appreciate you coming all the way up here.
It's my pleasure, man.
And I know you say you're not in love with your work, but you got tons of people out there that are.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said I don't fall in love with it.
I mean, like there's some of your stuff that I love. Some of the other people here love. I mean, so it's a great body of work, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, George.
All right. Later, Slicers.